Welcome back to the shop, guys. Today, we are diving into a project I've been dreaming about, forging a gorgeous Damascus steel axe. We're starting from scratch with a stack of alternating steel plates. My workshop is a total disaster as usual. But hey, that's where the magic happens. Make sure to hit that subscribe button before we accidentally set the place on fire. Time to gear up. We're going to MIG weld the corners and edges of this stack to lock everything into a solid, immovable block. After that, we weld on a long rebar handle so we can maneuver this heavy chunk of steel inside the forge without cooking our fingers. Straight into the gas forge it goes. We need to bring this metal sandwich up to a bright yellow heat, roughly 1300 degrees Celsius, which is the sweet spot for forge welding. Once it's glowing beautifully, we pull it out and give it a heavy shower of sodium tetraborate, commonly known as borax. It melts instantly, sealing the steel from oxygen and dissolving any nasty scale. Back into the fire for a quick soak so the flux can do its job. Then we head over to our favorite big blue beast, the power hammer. We are drawing out the billet, stretching it into a longer, flatter bar. It's a non-stop cycle of flipping the steel 90 degrees to keep it square and uniform. You have to monitor the color closely. If the temperature drops below a dull red, those fresh welds can shear apart, throwing all your hard work right into the scrap bin. We keep working the steel under the hammer, drawing it out further and refining the rectangular profile. It requires patience and a good eye for symmetry. If you hit it off center, the billet turns into a parallelogram, and correcting that is an absolute nightmare. It's noisy, sweaty work, but stretching these layers is how we build the foundation of our pattern. After a final heat, we set the elongated bar on the anvil to cool down slowly. This gives us a chance to inspect our handiwork. The welds look beautifully solid with no signs of delamination along the edges. Once it loses its red glow, we'll be ready to transition from hot forging to some therapeutic, spark-flying machine work. Time for some rough grinding. We lock our steel bar into the heavy vise and fire up the big angle grinder. We need to clean off all that stubborn forge scale and grind the surfaces flat. This step is crucial because we're preparing the billet for manipulation, and any leftover scale trapped inside the next fold will ruin the integrity of the steel. Now that the bar is clean and square, we cut off the old rebar handle and prep the billet for the next phase. We're going to weld a fresh rod right onto the end of our newly shaped block, sparking up the MIG welder again to ensure a rock-solid connection. With our new handle securely attached, the block goes right back into the belly of the gas forge. We need to get it back up to forging temperature, around 1100 degrees CC. Once it's hot, we take it back to the power hammer to refine the shape, drawing it out into a balanced square bar that's uniform from end to end, preparing it for a little twist action. All right, here comes the fun part: grooving and twisting the steel to create an amazing pattern. We lock the hot bar vertically into the vise, grab a massive pipe wrench, and use pure muscle to twist the glowing metal. This corkscrew motion distorts the parallel layers of steel, which is exactly how you get those mind-blowing star and twist patterns later on. Squeezing every ounce of rotation out of it while the steel is still plastic and hot. Twisting places an incredible amount of torsional stress on the internal forge welds. If your initial welding wasn't flawless, this is the exact moment where the entire bar will rip itself apart. Luckily, our welds are holding up beautifully under pressure. Back into the forge to reheat our glowing corkscrew, and then it's time to flatten it back down. We bring it to the power hammer to crush those twisted ridges and forge it back into a square bar. This forces the twisted layers flat against each other, creating an incredibly intricate, wavy aesthetic that looks absolutely stunning. We keep flattening and squaring the twisted billet under the power hammer, stretching it out to the exact dimensions we need for the axe head. It's a delicate balance of aggressive flattening and careful edge control to ensure the bar stays perfectly true. The pattern inside is looking wild, but we still have a long way to go. Back to our favorite heavy metal symphony. We're throwing this twisted bar right back under the power hammer to crush those ridges flat. Look at that scale flying. It's like a fireworks show, but louder and much more dangerous. We need this perfectly flat before we move on to the next phase of structural layout. Out of the forge it comes, glowing like a piece of trapped sunshine. Now we place it flat on the anvil. I'm grabbing a hot chisel because it's time to start splitting this bar. If you don't line this up perfectly down the center, your finished axe is going to look like a bent banana, so precision is key here. Hammering away on that chisel, driving it deep into the hot steel. You have to work fast before the metal loses its heat and hardens up on you. A few solid love taps from the hand hammer, flipping it over, and cutting from both sides ensures a clean, straight split right through the core of the billet. All right, the split is done. Now we're opening up those two halves, bending them outward on the horn of the anvil. We are basically turning this solid bar into a giant steel Y shape. This split and wrap method is a classic technique for creating a rock-solid axe eye that will hold the handle forever. Now we fold those wings all the way forward, wrapping them around to form the loop. It's like making a giant glowing steel taco. The trick here is to shape the eye without crushing it completely flat. Otherwise, good luck getting a wooden handle in there later. A little more anvil geometry, and the body is set. Next up, it's time for my absolute favorite tool to hide all my forging mistakes, the angle grinder. We're grinding the inside faces of our wrapped loop and checking out the fitment of our separate carbon steel insert bit that will form the cutting edge. Grinding those intermating surfaces until they are bright, clean, and completely flat. If there's any leftover oxide scale or dirt trapped inside when we weld them, the joint will fail, and the bit will literally fly off the axe during use. Now, time to whip out the blue marker for some precision shop drawings. I'm marking out the exact profile of the insert wedge on this thick steel plate. Why? Because winging it usually ends in absolute disaster. Once the lines are drawn, we lock the plate in the vise, fire up the cutting disc, and start the spark party. Protect your eyes, boys. It's about to get bright. Time to drop the welding shield again. We're laying down a few quick MIG tack welds along the seams just to fuse the insert bit to the wrapped outer cheeks. Back into the fire it goes. We're cranking up the heat to bring the assembly up to a blinding yellow forge welding temperature. I'm melting a generous amount of borax flux right into the seams. It liquefies and flows into the joint, acting as a shield against oxygen and preparing the surfaces to fuse permanently. The forge weld looks beautifully successful, so now we transition to refining the profile on the anvil. I'm using the hand hammer to draw out the beard of the axe, thinning the metal, and defining the blade's sweep. This is where the artistic side of blacksmithing takes over from the brutal, crushing force. All right, the brutal hot forging is officially done. Time to lock it down tight into the heavy vise, slapping on the safety goggles and hearing protection because it's about to rain sparks in this shop. We're carving away all that stubborn, nasty forge scale from the cheeks of the axe head to flatten out our working profile. Grinding down the front edge where our high-carbon steel insert bit meets the twisted Damascus layers. We need a perfectly smooth, flush transition here for a clean look. And now, it's time to play with fire. We're pulling the glowing head out and plunging it straight into a tank of engine oil. Boom! Look at those massive, angry flames engulfing the shop. This is the moment of truth where we lock in that rock-solid hardness for the cutting edge. Absolutely wild. Once the fire dies down, our axe head looks like a charred piece of charcoal. We clamp it down and unleash the angle grinder with a heavy-duty flap disc. We're ripping off all that crusty black quench scale to expose the clean, beautiful metal underneath. Get ready, because the reveal is right around the corner. Next, we wrap the ground head in a soft white protective pad and clamp it securely back into the vise. This keeps the harsh metal jaws from marring our beautiful finish. Grabbing a hand file to clean up the inside geometry of the axe eye. Power tools can't reach in here, so it's time for some classic elbow grease to make it perfect. Now for the magic moment. We're dipping our pristine axe head into a bath of ferric chloride acid. This chemical eats away the layers at different rates to reveal our pattern. Pulling it out of the acid etch, and wow, look at that. The high-contrast Damascus layers look absolutely beautiful. All that twisting and forging paid off big time. Immersing it in water and scrubbing it down with fine abrasive paper to clean off the loose oxides and really make that custom design pop visually. Moving on to the handle. We lay down a premium solid block of wood, place our etched axe head on top, and trace out the exact custom grip template with a black marker. Over to the vertical bandsaw we go. We're carefully slicing right along our marker lines to cut away the heavy excess bulk from the wooden block. Following the tight curves of our template to establish the ergonomic sweep of the handle. Take it slow here. One wrong twitch and your handle turns into expensive kindling. Back to the bench to inspect our rough cut. Now we grab the angle grinder fitted with a sanding flap disc to start sculpting the handle's three-dimensional ergonomics. This flap disc moves fast, turning a block into an ergonomic masterpiece. It looks cool, but my lungs and beard are currently about 80% sawdust. No pain, no gain, right? Continuing to contour the long, sweeping lines of the shaft, you have to keep the grinder moving dynamically across the surface. If you pause in one spot for even a second, you'll gouge a permanent dip right into the wood, ruining days of careful layout work. Now focusing heavily on shaping the bottom swell of the handle. This is the crucial part that stops the axe from accidentally flying out of your sweaty hands when you're swinging it with maximum confidence out in the yard, merging power tool speed with artistic sculpture. We clamp the handle down and bust out a classic hand tool. I'm cutting a clean, precise vertical slot right down the center of the top tenon. This relief slot is absolutely critical because it's exactly where our wooden wedge will expand the assembly later. Switching over to some therapeutic hand sanding with fine grit paper. No power tools here, just running my hands along the wood to feel for any sneaky high spots or imperfections. If it doesn't feel perfectly smooth to the touch, we keep sanding until it is. The marriage ceremony of steel and wood has officially arrived. I'm sliding our beautifully etched Damascus axe head onto the wooden tenon, giving it a few heavy, authoritative slams on the workbench to seat the head perfectly flush down the shaft. busting out the saw once again to carefully trim away the ugly overhanging piece of the wedge flush with the top of the axe head. Once it's cut close, a quick pass with a fine sanding disc leaves the top completely flat and professional looking. And now, for the single most satisfying moment of the entire project, applying the protective oil finish. Watching that dry wood soak up the oil and seeing the deep, rich, natural grain structure instantly pop is pure magic. It also adds a nice, subtle protective sheen to our custom steel. Enough workshop theory. We're stepping out into the backyard with a fresh log on the chopping block. One clean, powerful swing from the shoulder, and boom! Absolute effortless devastation. Look at this gorgeous piece of functional art sitting on the bench. The contrast between the dark, wavy etched Damascus pattern and the rich polished timber handle turned out better than I could have ever hoped. It fits the hand perfectly and balances like a dream. From a basic pile of messy alternating steel plates to a legendary hand-forged twisted Damascus axe. If you guys want to see more crazy, spark-flying projects like this one, make sure to drop a comment below, smash that like button, and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.